you have any idea if you're going to rest Carmelo on this back-to-back front end, back end?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll evaluate that, once we get through tomorrow, just to see where things are at and have those conversations. But there's been nothing in terms of planned, to rest him coming back after the Denver game, I mean, going into the Denver game.
Is that typically a day of thing, or is it something leading up to those days that you get an idea
I
of
mean,
whether or
we've
not you're
had
going
we've
to be
had
back?
preliminary conversations, with Carmelo and Russell and Paul and just different guys of, just keeping the conversations open in terms of how they feel. And they know that we'll always have conversations during the year to take a pulse of where they're at. But a lot of that, those conversations happen on the front end in terms of earlier in the year, but those decisions generally happen probably, the day of the game or next day getting up how they're feeling, and we're all on the same page as it relates to, okay, where we're at. So we just don't come in and say, hey, we're taking off this game, we're taking off this game, we're resting this. We just don't do that. I think because a lot of times these guys, like, there's times when we've been in back-to-backs and Carmelo says, listen, I feel really, really good, I feel fine, and the medical staff says, hey, listen, he's in good place, and he wants to play. Melo's a competitor, and he loves the game, so you just don't want to do that. But if he feels like, hey, listen, this would maybe rejuvenate me a little bit, give me a little bit more life, and I'm a little bit worn down, and we'll take that into consideration because coming up here we have three games in 4 nights, so there's a lot to evaluate.
Billy, they're the third best home team in the NBA. Anything in particular heading down there that you're going to have to do at a high level to kind of just deal with their veteran presence down there?
I think the same things you got to do here. They're going to be, they're going to, I think, do a really good job of attacking the paint, playing off the dribble, making the extra pass, moving the ball. They're going to, really, really be good defensively in terms of protecting the deep paint, protecting the rim, and trying to keep you off the free throw line. So, you're gonna, they're doing those things, both at home and on the road. And I think for any team, when you go on the road to play, it's always more challenging.
The past 2 seasons, Aldridge just hurt you a little bit, but he didn't hurt you like he did in that series the first year, those first couple of games. What have you done differently against him, or what have you thought about the way y'all approached defending him in the past couple of seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that series, that first game in particular, wherever he had 38 or 40 points, we just didn't have, I think, enough urgency to get back to him, and he takes a lot of non-paint twos, but he's so elite at taking them and making them. It's not a shot you want to give him. Like, there's certain guys that with the non-paint twos, they outperform the numbers. Like, for a lot of guys, it's maybe not the best shot, or it's a shot that you want teams to take. But there's certain guys in the league that are good enough to make that on such a consistent basis that it works against you. And I think we've had probably a little bit more urgency of trying to get back to him because he's such an elite shooter and scorer.
Was that a game that kind of signaled that for you all? I mean, in the past couple of seasons, being able to defend him better. Was those two first couple of games kind of like a
Yeah,
change
I
in
think
that?
I think they're doing things, not totally, but there's things that are being done differently. Their team was different. Tim Duncan was still there, and they had, Parker was fully healthy at that time. So there was different things that they were doing systematically offensively. Now LaMarcus still gets those opportunities inside their offense now. But I think the more you play against a player, for someone like Steven was 3 years ago, he's 3 more years more experienced, and you probably get more comfortable and get a better understanding of how to play against different players. And he, has done a good job. But listen, I've always said this: when you're going against high-level offensive players, once the ball leaves their hands, there's only so much you can do. And I think Steven's done a good job of trying to make it as hard as he can, as it relates to getting back to him and trying to contest and challenge shots. And the other part of that, too, is he's so good at shot faking and drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line. So he's got, like, really, for a big man facing up, at 15, 17 feet, he's got an arsenal of different things that he goes to that makes him really hard to defend.
They basically say that, Melo just told us that I've taken a lot of shots, I've made some, I've missed some. It's not in his head. He's frustrated by some missed shots, but he took them with confidence, and you don't have to worry about, I guess, him getting too down on himself. That's safe to say, a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Carmelo is, he's seen everything. He's seen everything throughout his career, even going back to high school, college, and now professionally. So he's had games where he's missed free throws. He's had games where he's missed shots coming down the stretch. He's had games where he's made free throws. He's had games he's made shots down the stretch. And I think he probably understands better than anybody the ability to move to the next game the next day and kind of wash it and flush it and learn something from it and figure out a way to utilize it to make yourself better. So, he's a consummate pro. And like I said, he's been in those situations so many times that he'll know how to come back from those.
Coach, speaking of Carmelo, I just asked him because he hasn't been in the playoffs since I think 2013, and with a few games left, considering his frustrating week last week, is there something that you're kind of noticing, like a different mentality or desire, and kind of in practice or in his game, just as you approach these final few games?
No, I mean, the thing I give Carmelo a lot of credit for is his consistency every single day. He's the same guy in here every day. He comes to practice every day. He's the same. There has not really been much change, and I think when you're dealing with a long season with 82 games and the emotions of ups and downs and great wins and tough losses, emotionally and mentally, it can affect your mood. It can affect your disposition. And I've always respected and admired that, I think regardless of what's happened the night before, you can always count on that Melo comes back in here as a professional, ready to get to work and do what he needs to do to help our group. And that I've been really impressed with that because I've never worked with him before, and there was no prior relationship to the start of this season. But he's been great as it relates to that.
You're going to need him to be Melo to do what you think you can do in the playoffs. You're going to need his contributions. A lot of people talking about the role he plays. He's got to play well for you, doesn't he, for you guys to have success in the playoffs?
It's not only him, it's our entire team. I think to put it on Melo would really be unfair. Our team needs to play well. That includes Russell, that includes Paul, Corey Brewer, Steven, includes our bench, Raymond, Patrick, Jeremy, Alex Abrinas. We all got to play well. I think to put something on one individual player wouldn't be fair. Now, clearly,
you're part of it, though.
Yeah, every guy's a part of it, though. I mean, every guy's got to be a part of it. We're not going to be as good as Russell's not as good as he's capable of being. We're not going to be as good as Paul or Steven or any of these guys who's not as good. We need them to be at their best because when you're playing against really good teams, especially with what we're playing coming down the stretch, there's going to be adversity. Things are not going to go well. There's going to be difficulties and challenges, and you got to be able to have the perseverance and the resiliency to pull through those kind of situations, as a group. And it may require if someone's having a tough night stepping up. We may not all be clicking on all cylinders every single night, but to say, it's Melo, yeah, we need everybody. And everybody plays a part, to your point. Everybody contributes in some form or fashion when they're out there on the court. And we need all five guys working well together.
Has there been any thought into taking Carmelo out late in games? Or do you need him on the court at that time?
Well, I think from my perspective, I said this after the game, I think Carmelo's a guy that is a really good voice as it relates to communication on defense. I also think that he's a guy that has been in a lot of different experiences. And, I'm not going to sit there and say that, that situations don't cause for any kind of substitution for anybody, But I feel comfortable with Melo coming down the stretch and how he's played. But, who knows? If a team went out there and put four guards out there, with a 6'8" center, that could affect Steven Adams. Could affect anybody. You're always going to have to go against matchups. So it's not just Carmelo. It could be Steven. It could be anybody, on our team, as you're looking at that could be affected. Maybe, we were in a situation, I think, a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, against Washington, where they played Morris at the center spot with four guards. And Steven had a really hard time matching up. So, could it be Steven? Could it be Carmelo? Could it be Jeremy Grant out there? Who, I think we try to make the decisions that would be best for our team in those situations.
How do you think this team has handled the expectations at this point this year? I mean, you've dealt with high expectations before, but how have they handled it overall this season?
I listen. I think what ends up happening is when you have a team that, and I had this, even at Florida. First time we won a national championship, the team that we had was unranked. So that team unbelievably overachieved. Then the next year we were ranked number one in the country. Same group of guys, unranked to number one in the country. So sometimes a lot of this preseason stuff you don't know. So I don't really look at it as the expectation part of it. It's because we've pulled a group of players together and half our rosters changed that are really, really good players. But it's all about a team to me. It's all about how your team gels and meshes and works with one another. And for us, that's been a process. And I think I talked about it from day one that it was going to take time for us to constantly evolve. I think our biggest struggles were early in the year, in the months of probably November and December, offensively. I mean, we were probably rating-wise, 23rd, 24th best offensive team. I clearly knew that we were better than that, but we weren't performing like that because it took time. So sometimes it takes time for teams to evolve. Our guys knew the expectations, but they also knew that it was going to take time for a group of guys that have never played together to try to evolve to become a good team.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.